Thank you, Chairman. I wish to move an amendment of an additional action, not recommendation, and that is the action that this council refers itself into special measures and to the Ombudsman. I believe that it's very, very clear that our Cabinet and officers are unable to resolve these issues. They've had several years of notification of this. We've had internal audits. I named some of them, I can name others. Fire safety, for example, limited assurance, that's the fire safety measures. Months and months on, still limited assurance. Actions not taken. The audit committee had to summon the health and safety manager to come to the audit committee to explain just how dire the situation was that he found when he arrived here. That was 2.5, 3 years ago, before COVID. Yet these issues have been well known. Members opposite have known that the staff savings are not going to be achieved and were posts that were never going to be filled. The savings plan that's been presented to this council by members opposite is a work of fiction worthy of the Man Booker Prize. Even the move to this building, members queried at the time, why would we move to a Victorian building? Now we look at the cost of energy rising, and we're sat here in our coats trying to keep warm in this building, yet I would imagine that the cost of this has spiralled. It's very clear that between our corporate management team and the administration opposite, they are incapable of running anything, let alone a council. You could not run any business like this. And I think the only way I would feel confident, and I believe other members, including some of the Conservative backbench, interestingly, would feel confident, is if we got external support in to resolve these issues once and for all. I no longer feel confident in the leadership of this council, or indeed the corporate management team, to put in place and to have the willingness and resilience to put in place the measures that are needed to get this council back on track. Because if we don't do this, members, we have 1 year of reserves left. And we know that that 1 year is going to be eaten into by continuing the results of the cost of living crisis and wages needing to rise in this council. We know we cannot hire and retain the staff that we need. Without taking action now, we risk this council no longer even existing in the future. We owe this to the people of Bromsgrove, who paid their taxes year after year and have paid the tax rises imposed by the members opposite, only to get a failing service by any measure from this council. It's very clear that this Section 24 notice, the state of the finances of this council, the state of just the most basic controls that you have to have in place to run an organisation, we fail on each account. We fail on culture, we fail on behaviours, we fail on performance management.
You've made it very clear. You made it very clear. I don't think you need to add much more. Could you please wind up?
Seconder. I'll wind up, yes, of course, Chairman. So all this.
Hold on, just
no, you asked me to wind up.
No, you hold on, please. Thank you. Councillor Colella. Sorry, Councillor Malik first. Sorry, Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman, and I'm portfolio holder for your presentation of the report. I resign tonight as the Chairman of Audit Standards and Governance Committee. I think that this report is an absolute indictment of the situation that's happened under your watch. It's very, very clear that these issues have been raised time and time again, and either the administration opposite have had the wool pulled over their eyes, or they are part of this situation that has arisen at this council. The Audit Committee for some time has been raising these issues, well over a year in fact. The Finance and Performance Board before it was removed, raised these issues as well. There's not much in this report that's actually new news. We've known that our accounts have been 18 months late for the last 2 years, and to blame that all on a new finance system, a better way to describe the new finance system is a failed finance system implementation. And you wonder why staff are leaving, why we're on our third 151 officer in 18 months. Well, it's not really surprising, is it, with the state that the finances of this council have been left in by the members opposite. So there's not much new news here, but it should be a concern for every single member in this chamber. It should be a concern for the Cabinet opposite, and it should be a concern for the taxpayers of Bromsgrove that their money has been wasted and frittered away in the way that it has been. Our auditors, internal and external, have raised these issues again and again. And now the inevitable has happened, and we've followed our partners in Redditch in being issued with a Section 24 notice. The Audit Standards and Governance Committee that you refer to next week has even been called on a date that officers were fully aware that neither the Vice Chairman or the Chairman could attend. And despite alternative dates being offered to the officers, there were always other obligations, other commitments in Redditch, other calls on chief officers. I don't accept it because for this council that would have been the most important meeting we had aside from tonight. But it goes beyond just the finances. It's the risk management of the council. We had an audit in 2021 that identified that no assurance could be given as to the risk management arrangements of this council. No assurance. No risk management plan, no risk management champions, and yet the group opposite could not furnish the Audit Standards and Governance Committee with an audit champion who produced a single report. And despite us knowing about this audit since 2021, it was only in the face of the follow-up report being produced that on the 16th of March of this year, a report was finally taken to the corporate management team. Not action taken, just a report taken to the corporate management team. If you knew that the entire risk basis of this council, at a time of COVID, at a time of financial pressures, if the members opposite knew, if the portfolio holder knew, if the leader knew that for over a year no action was taken on a no assurance audit, and just to be clear, we do not have many no assurance audits anywhere in the auditing industry. To be clear that on one of the most significant audits we could have, no action was taken for over a year. Well, either if they knew they should resign, or they should be finding out which of the officers was responsible for this. So, I would also ask tonight that the officers contact immediately our insurers to confirm if our insurers have been made aware of these issues, because I suspect that our cover is not valid because we're required to report serious issues to our insurers. The fact we have a no assurance audit as to our risk controls as a council is a serious issue, in my view. And then in terms of financials, the word transparency is used a number of times in the papers tonight and some of the backup papers that went to the Audit and Governance Committee. Either the administration opposite have been trying to rosy up or hide the financial position, or they've had it hidden from them by their officers. It's one or the other. They dissolved the finance and budget scrutiny process. There have been no budget monitoring reports or systems in place. The Performance Management Committee went without members having access to the performance management dashboard that they were promised to have. The last performance management report went to the Cabinet in 2018 in May. I know we've had COVID, but COVID didn't even start till 2020 in the UK. Why? Did the members opposite, who's accountable for risk management on the Cabinet? Did they not wonder where this report was? Did they not think that they should be hearing a bit about the risks, the corporate risk register, for example, which didn't exist, as I understand it, until recently? Why was this not coming to the Cabinet? There are members from the County Council opposite who see these papers all the time in the county. Did they think that the district was an organisation that just didn't need to manage risks? So it's either the members of the Cabinet have failed here, or it's the officers have failed to provide the members of the Cabinet with what they needed, and the Cabinet have failed to ask for it. We've got a savings plan that is essentially a work of fiction. It's not been monitored, it's not been tracked, it lacks integrity and transparency, is how it's described. It shows a failure to track savings. A year of reserves is what this council is left with. 1 year of reserves. And I would suggest that's before we consider the pay award that is now going to need to be paid to our staff, quite rightly, which will increase the staff cost base very significantly.
You're at the end of your time.
I'll sum up, and thank you, Chairman. And I think you would do me that service. Safeguarding. This council is not in a position that can even offer an assurance in terms of its internal audit that it can keep children and vulnerable adults safe. We've had key officers leaving, we've lost cases at tribunal as a result, and we have a culture in which officers are afraid to speak out. This, members, is too much. It's too much for any audit committee that has raised these issues again and again, to the extent of needing to summon the chief executive to attend the audit committee to even get satisfactory responses to failed audits on this council over a number of years.
Thank you,
you could not run any business like this, Chairman.
Chairman,
I will finish. You could not run any business like this, Chairman, and you will not just silence me on the basis that this is uncomfortable news to hear. If you ran a business like this, if I ran a business like this,
you will abide by the rules,
Chairman.
please, and you have completed your time, and I will allow you to carry on.
Auditors tonight, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, next is Councillor Calella.
Thank you, Chairman. This was going to be a question to the Chairman of Audits and Standards, but I pose this to yourself, Chairman, and hope that it will be taken forward. This is truly a terrible outcome and something that hasn't put Bromsgrove District Council in any good light whatsoever. So therefore I would like to make a request as a third recommendation on this paper that the Audit and Standards Board will carry out a root and branch investigation offline in the initial stages in how this resulted in the Section 24 and its resulting reputational damage that came about. Once that report is concluded, those findings are made public and it is added as an urgent item to the next Audit and Standards Board meeting, which I think is next Wednesday, as an urgent item for that board to undertake a offline investigation.
Give notice of an amendment.
Thank you.
That the member opposite has raised have been historic. We had the perfect car crash. We had a new ERP system. We had 15 vacancies appear in finance because people went on to pastures new. Now, I don't in any way condone if somebody's got any issues to raise with us, please raise them because I'm not aware of any issues.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm very sad that we've had the Section 24, but the statement of accounts, the draft form is there, the action is being taken.
And Leader mentioned we're not unique. My understanding is that there are actually 3 authorities at the moment that have Section 24 served on them. One of the others, of course, is Redditch because we have the same systems. So I think we are really pretty unique. So I would really value us having a complete and thorough review of how this happened, how we can make sure it doesn't happen again, and to make sure that we've got all the right risks and controls in place to ensure that it doesn't. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Houghton.
Thank you. I was pretty much going to say exactly what Councillor Baxter said. It is important that lessons are learned from this debacle. I understand that we've been told the reasons behind it, but it would be very nice to have councillors actually investigate and produce a transparent report that everyone can see, well, we lost this number of staff at this point, the ERP system failed because of this. And coming back to the risk register, I am pretty certain that if this council had been told when the ERP system was first discussed and suggested to be implemented that we were going to be the guinea pigs for part of the system, this council would have at that moment said, hang on a moment, we know a few things about implementing IT systems, and IT systems can be very difficult, and if you are the guinea pig, what do you expect?
Comments from the leading group this evening, I'm even more concerned than I was before I came here, that you've really kind of grasped the seriousness of the situation that we're in here. Also, not sure that the distraction techniques at this point are appropriate, blaming people not attending meetings and some of those things. You know, I've been on audit and standards now for 6 years, and me, as well as others on the group, have been shouting as loud as we can on this, and certainly Councillor Mallet, I think to suggest for 1 minute that he hasn't been trying to flag some of these issues, I think is crazy, really. This is something that we've been really highlighting for, all the time that I've been on that committee, so certainly the last, recent couple of years. Just to really be absolutely clear where we are now, this is more than just late accounts. What we're seeing here, this report, was really quite scary reading. We've got fundamental weaknesses in many areas of this council, to the extent that we're failing in the very basics The new finance system, never been tested, as people have already flagged. We've got weaknesses in our procurement processes. We've got weaknesses in broader risk management. We've got weaknesses in budget management and accountability. And we've got weaknesses in workforce planning, and we're seeing the impact of that in various different departments, as we've already talked about this meeting and previous meeting. But also worrying that we've got these weaknesses in performance management. The role of the cabinet members and the controlling group is to be managing the performance of this council, and that isn't happening. And clearly, some of those reports that we haven't had, for 4 years now. This is a council that's failing in the very basics, and it seems to be led by an administration that are asleep at the wheel. We need a firm commitment, whichever of the amendments or other approach that we take. This needs more than just this, agreeing tonight the suggestion in this proposal that we need to be agreeing that these actions will rectify these issues. That just seems a really glib response to a really, really serious situation. I need absolute confidence from the Cabinet that they really understand this and will be making this a top priority. And I'm not yet seeing that from you, and that's what we need to at this stage.
I'll take Councillor Mallet.
I really do think it's important that we do investigate what has happened here, to give that comfort in a way that what Councillor Mallet was saying, just to make sure that we have really looked at everything and it won't happen again. I was reading through the report, 5.1, risk management, non-delivery of the 2020-21 accounts is a fundamental deficiency, and this is part of the corporate risk register. How was that highlighted in the corporate risk register? Was it amber? Was it red? Why didn't we know about it before it happened? I think these are all things that we really need to look into.